It's termite season.
Hi, it's me.
And bugs fear the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control.
Go blue at Essential Pest Control. We'll eliminate those bugs, bees, and termites. And stop paying too much to that national provider. Buy local for great service and affordable rates. Call Essential Pest Control because termites fear the blue.
Run for your life.
Call for the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. 886-3029. That's 886-3029. Or check online at essentialpest.com.
This is Eb Wilkinson with Wilkinson Wealth Management, where we manage money for gun owners. What does it mean to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired? It means designing a plan that allows you to do the things you want to do, outpace inflation, and never run out of money in your lifetime. If you want to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired, call me, Eb Wilkinson, at 777-1911. That's 777-1911 or WilkinsonWealthMGMT.com.
I'm proud to welcome my good friends at Tucson Iron and Metal Retail to Inside Track as an advertiser. Jamie Kipper and her staff are conservation experts. They sell round and square steel tubing, metal plate and roofing materials, as well as new and used steel, aluminum, and stainless steel to ranchers, artists, interior designers, roofers, as well as you do-it-yourselfers out there. Tucson Iron and Metal Retail is open Monday through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to noon. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail, 701 East 36th Street. Call 520-209-1576. That's 520-209-1576. Or go to TucsonIronRetail.com. Come by and be sure to ask for Jamie. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail. This is what conservation and repurposing is all about.
Welcome to Inside Track with Bruce Ash and Eb Wilkinson on the Live the Dream Media Network.
Live from the Live the Dream Media Mega Complex in Southern Arizona, Bruce Ash and
Eb Wilkinson.
Welcome back. We have another action-packed Big Wednesday show for you today on Inside Track. Yep.
Hey, thanks for joining us today on Big Wednesday. Joining us in just a few moments, our UK correspondent, Adrian Brettle, with late-breaking news from our British cousins across the Atlantic. And it's very unsettling, to say the least. After we hear from Adrian, Bruce and I will break down some late-breaking news in our remaining time with you today. Thanks for joining us on Live the Dream app, or watch us on X, Facebook, YouTube, and our other platforms. To talk to us and our guest, call today at 520-777-5101, or send a message to us on Live the Dream Media Facebook site. Bruce?
Just a little change. I know you're used to that 777 number. It's 520-771-5101.
Let me try that again. 520-771-5101.
All right. Believe me, we'll both make multiple mistakes between now and 10 a.m. Eb and I hope all of you will continue supporting our great sponsors who help us pay the man here at Live the Dream Media. Eb's great company, Wilkinson Wealth Management. Have I told you Eb helps gun owners, and he helps my family also? Let Eb help yours too. Our good friend Eric Rudin at Essential Pest, his team of professionals protects all manner of pests, vermin, and weeds, even at Eb's place. Jamie Kipper from Tucson Iron and Metal Retail, and my family's three-generation company, Paul Ash Commercial Real Estate. We make good things happen every day. When you call on any of our supporters, please let them know you found out about us, about their business from Eb and Bruce on Inside Track. Eb?
Hey, we're pleased to welcome our guest today, Adrian Brettle from Sam Houston State University in Texas. Adrian has been our UK correspondent over the past year or so. We are so fortunate to be able to call on Adrian to get the latest news from our British cousins from time to time in the spirit of the BBC's Westminster Hour. Welcome back to Inside Track, Adrian.
Hello to you, hello Ed, hello Bruce.
Hey, England has led the fight for freedom dating back as far as the signing of the Magna Carta in 1215. Great Britain stood up to the Nazi tyranny in World War II, but lately it seems she's become obsessed with squelching free speech and becoming an Orwellian police state, not only what people can say or even put on their T-shirt to get a laugh. How did this happen?
Well, first and foremost, to our regret, Britain hasn't got a First Amendment. So we haven't got those constitutional protections that you have in the US. However, more recently, we have this concept of harmful speech in legislation such as the Human Rights Act and the Online Safety Bill, this sense of harm leading to policing, and the police prefer to investigate instead of dangerous real crime, examining harmful tweets and posts on social media. And there is also this sense of, they call it two-tier policing, a double standard when dealing with protests between what might be construed as the progressive left protests for Gaza, etc., which are often equally harmful than anti-immigrant protests, etc. And so there's a sense of public square that not only is there a policing against harmful speech, but it is also unequal, that it impacts sort of middle class people who are concerned about crime and immigration far more than left-wing protesters concerned about the situation in Gaza and prepared to. There's a Palestinian in action terrorist group who has actually gone out and attacked British defense sites on the grounds that they support Israel.
Adrian, talk about that group. That's not a name I've heard before, not news I'm aware of. Talk about that group and also the reasons why those laws were implemented. Was it COVID? Was it something else that happened?
Right. To Palestinian Action is a new group who recently attacked at the Royal Air Force Base at Brize Norton. The Labour government has decreed that they are a terrorist organisation. And this has led to, and hence that has meant protests in favour of Palestine action have been declared to be illegal, as they would be if they were pro-Hamas. So this has led to I think this is the Labour's attempt to deal with the two-tier policing charge to police this radical extremist pro-Islamic group. But Labour are now arresting their own supporters, in effect, and so this is causing huge trouble for the government. To your second question, the online, definitely the sort of the COVID era with the growth of social media has expanded this issue of harmful speech. And the Online Safety Act, passed by a Conservative government, this is a bipartisan move, was seeking to protect children from harm online. But what it has done is that it has opened the floodgates to police all kinds of adult content online. And then the Human Rights Act, passed by Labour government, not repealed by the Conservatives, leads to many individuals being able to claim this harm. This was passed in 1998. But its use has expanded terrifically now that people can say, I am harmed, my offence is tangible. If you are flying the St. George's flag in my street, I construe that as racist and I demand that it gets taken down.
Wasn't the St. George's flag flown over castles while Queen Elizabeth was reigning?
Exactly. And the other one I just want to bring up to you. Yeah. And the other one I just want to bring up, which I'm sure you know about, but this is because your vice president mentioned this. This is the issue about protests around abortion clinics and how, again, because it's viewed as harmful to the patients, there is a ban around protest around abortion clinics. And that Vice President Vance noticed that an elderly protester who was praying outside an abortion clinic was arrested on the grounds that it was harmful to patients having to walk past somebody praying for the unborn baby. And that really riled, as I say, the United States. And there are protests being made by the State Department about Britain's infringement of free speech on that grounds.
It's just crazy. How does freedom of speech get restored?
Well, yesterday, Nigel Farage, the leader of the Reform Party, has put forward it's still vague, but he's pledging to pass a British Bill of Rights in effect, because, as I mentioned before, both political parties have pursued policies, whether intentionally or unintentionally, that are limited free speech. Farage it won't have the same protections as your constitutional protections, but it will have statutory protections. We wait and see what he's actually going to propose in that Bill of Rights, but perhaps that would be a start.
What is the political mood in Britain amongst the majority of the British subjects today about the state of their country?
Well, it is, I think, depressed and anxious, and that is shown in a collapse of the main political parties. The support, but not only for the government, now that's often the place, but when you're in government, you become unpopular. But what is extraordinary is that the main opposition party, the Conservative Party, has continued, even after its historic defeat, to hemorrhage support massively. You are having a fragmentation. So this anxiety about change has led to the increased and anger at the, quote, establishment, who has systematically betrayed the British people on the economy, on immigration, on defence, etc., etc. The rise of outsider candidates, new parties. So the two-party system is finished. We have 5 or 6. This is similar to what has happened on the continent of Europe, a fragmentation of the political scene, new parties to the left and to the right. You could call them populist, anti-establishment. Some are nativist, some are Marxist. They share some attributes, but then they're very different as well. But that is what you're seeing. But the outlook is incredibly uncertain.
Bruce.
The Reform Party, is that the leading? Well, let me back up. The Conservative Party wasn't conservative in the way that we know conservatism here in the United States, correct? Is that
correct? I mean, yes. I mean, it was always to the left. I mean, left or right. But the Conservative Party had liberal attributes. I mean, Margaret Thatcher was very close. It varied by leader. Margaret Thatcher had a lot of identification with Ronald Reagan, and so the Conservative Party broadly has been aligned with Republicans, while the Labour Party has been aligned with the Democrats.
And what are you mentioned, and we've seen this hit our country in America, citizens not trusting the government and what they say, citizens learning what the government's done, whether it's 5 years, 20 years, or 1 year later, and very unhappy about that and feeling as though that they've been deceived. Is it a similar sort of a condition that exists in Europe, or excuse me, in the UK? And what plans do the Reform Party or any other parties have to make those differences in the future?
Yeah. A sense of failure by institutions, and the sense that politicians from both parties have lied to the British people, for example, about the situation with immigration. That number one, that immigrants bring benefits, that number two, the numbers coming in can be controlled. Neither has been the case. So that's just one example. So this has led to a profound distrust of mainstream politicians and a willingness to experiment. So Nigel Farage meant the Reform Party. Now, Farage there is some affinity to what you might call the Trump wing, the MAGA movement in the United States. And the Bill of Rights is looking to, American practice. But he's also looking to Australia on immigration. Farage is a representative of an anti-establishment, you could call him a Tea Party kind of movement, that is saying, we have been let down, it's time for a change. The difficulty is that they are now being elected. I mentioned, I look at them like the know-nothings at the moment. In the 1850s, that destroyed the Whig Party in the United States, but were unable to ever govern. We are now seeing Reform run local government, and obviously they're struggling. But I think the anger against the sort of the mainstream parties is so great that the British people are demonstrating. It's very fluid. They may move again, but they're demonstrating an increased willingness to experiment and a lack of loyalty. The only people who vote Conservative are basically people who are over 70. The younger generations are incredibly fluid. They move from party to party. There's no loyalty. To an extent, you have that in the United States, that neither party's traditional sources of support have shifted. Although the two-party systems remained in America, you always have coalitions. What's happened in Britain and in Europe has been the old parties have collapsed and new parties, whether it's the Alternative for Deutschland in Germany or the, in Italy, in France, you name it, each country has got new parties breaking through. And it's just happened in Britain over the last 12 to 18 months. Very, very suddenly, shocking, and we don't know where it's going to end.
But these parties always, not always, but certainly in Britain, in France and Italy up until recently, these more conservative movements seem to be making great progress with their electoral chances as they get close to the election, and somehow, like Le Pen and like or actually like Le Pen and Farage in England, they just never get over the finish line. Why do you think that?
Well, the current polls, but opinion polls have Reform on 30%, about 10 points ahead of Labour and double the support of the Conservatives. So, of course, Britain's electoral system is, it's like in America, it's a constituency base. So once you have critical mass of Labour won a landslide with 33% of the vote. Reform are very close to that now. So no, it is perfectly possible. And but the revolution, and this is a revolution, is that currently Reform has 4 members of Parliament out of 620, I think it is, or 650. 4 MPs. They could win over 300 at the next election. So we're talking about a seismic change. Now, many of these are former Conservatives, and I think this is the point. To what extent will Reform effectively co-opt the old party, take its experienced candidates, or is there going to be a reverse takeover taking place? I don't, like it happened in Canada. I don't know whether you're going to end up with a fusion of an old party and a new party, or whether Reform is, as looks like at the moment, is destroying the Conservatives and sort of picking them up by piecemeal.
Well, it's like
Le Pen is off a pale, but Reform. Anyway,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah. So the Whig Party was Abraham Lincoln, and Abraham Lincoln,
That's
all those
right.
people became Republicans, and from there we saw it. So talk about, Adrian, the impact of immigration in Great Britain and the reaction of great percentages of the population to the millions of largely impoverished, unskilled newcomers to that island.
Yes, immigration's just overtaken the economy, and the economy's seriously bad, but immigration's taken over it as the main issue. You have the equivalent of a major city arriving in England and Wales each year. Say a new Manchester, a new Birmingham arriving each year. So it is Biden administration levels of immigration, okay? If you do a pro rata to the United States larger population. And it is, there's no attempt at assimilation, establishing their own schools, worshipping obviously in their own mosques and other religious institutions, and they're beginning to form their own political parties. It varies from place to place. Obviously, this is a phenomenon far more identifiable in places like London, in the cities in the north like Manchester, Leeds, Bradford, Birmingham, Liverpool, etc. But it is moving towards rural areas as well, because the sheer numbers are just extraordinary, and the suddenness. We've had high immigration on and off since 1998, but post-COVID, we've seen the real explosion in numbers. And Sir Keir Starmer, he walked these comments back, but the Prime Minister talked about an island of strangers. There have been some significant scandals these communities where young girls, English girls, have been used as sex slaves by groups of unassimilated male Muslim immigrants. The big scandals have been going on. But as I say, there is the real threat is whether you could call it. I mean, they likened it to the Northern Ireland sectarian troubles when you have Protestants and Catholics basically living in ghettos, with flags flying and other emblems and walls being built. This sense of ghettoization or sectarianism growing across the country. And this is a definite, we're not there yet, but some would argue that it's already too late. Too many immigrants have arrived, and that there is no way that there's no process of assimilation as there is in the United States. There is the sense that you are defined by your separate identity, and that is becoming increasingly unsettling for many people who perceive that the country itself seems to be fragmenting. And as I say, are we going to see political parties? We have 5 Islamic candidates were elected at the last election. That's one more than a Reform Party. And there are local elections in the main cities next year, places like Birmingham. So are we going to see Islamic councils, local municipal authorities being run? Labour there is a Marxist Islamist faction and the former party leader Jeremy Corbyn is forming a new political party. So the real question is, how far are we going to go down that?
We always knew Jeremy was a Marxist, so now he's just demonstrating it.
Yeah, Adrian, I'm looking at the numbers. In 2001, there were 1.6 million British Muslims. In 2011, it had almost doubled, 2.8 million. And 2021, 4 million British Muslims, 6% of the population. And when you take a look at, compare it to places like Dearborn, Michigan and Hamtramck, Michigan, Dearborn, which was, pretty basic, the Muslims have taken over there. Hamtramck, which was a Polish community, it was like 99.9% Polish. There are no Polish there at all. It's completely Muslim. Where do you see this happening over in Britain?
Well, France is another. France has historically had a large Muslim population. Its former colonies like Algeria, etc. And of course, the French have had huge issues. Now, and you can see it that, of course, Macron is only too happy to play the anti-Israel card. And your ambassador has accused him of acting as an Charles Kushner has accused him of basically tolerating anti-Semitism. So the question, that is a possibility, is an increased level of anti-Semitism, a growth of, as I say, Islamic institutions, whether it's schools, whether it's, as I said, other such and dominated local authorities. Yes, you see Dearborn. You have the candidate running in Minneapolis, I think. Right. You have these. It is both a fusion of radical socialism along with radical Islamism is sort of coming on. So it's increased. Some of it looks like just your left-wing Democrats or left-wing Labour. But then you add into the mix because they're already anti-Western, they're already anti-Christian, even before they got that. But then you throw the Islamism, it even intensifies these anti-capitalist, anti-Western traits within them.
So we've read that out-migration is way up amongst professionals, business leaders. What are the chances of them ever leaving? And how significant is that brain drain potentially on the British society?
Yes, we're talking about out-migration, about between 100,000, 200,000 a year. So the numbers coming in the effect is magnified because you're having a departure, mainly younger, whiter, better educated. Give you a few examples. Doctors going to work instead of the National Health Service, they're going off to work for better pay and conditions in Australia and New Zealand. You have financial services people leaving the City of London, going to the UAE, Dubai, or indeed to the United States. They're academics heading off to the United States.
Imagine that.
Is
Next thing you know, they'll be in Texas.
Possibly even as far as Texas. It is so the impact, the brain drain, as you say, and it is reflecting. It both contributes to and then increases the sort of decline in living. Why are people leaving? Living standards. They want a higher standard of living. They find some of them are being increasingly feeling that they're strangers in their own country. They're fed up with regulation. They're fed up with high taxation. And so you're having a huge loss of the innovative fundraising dynamic. Health professionals are leaving, and so the City of London is, I mean, as I said, that Britain is apparently, there are still good ideas being stimulated, whether it's in technology, etc. It's a great place for new companies to be formed, but they can never raise any money in the United Kingdom, so hence they relist on the New York Stock Exchange, and you're having a huge move. I mean, what does Britain do about it? Well, as your president told, when he came over, cut taxes, deal with immigration, deregulate. That is what they've got to do. But no government yet, and no political parties yet putting forward anything. But that's what they've got to do, because the declining growth rate of the economy is certainly mapping into the loss of this most dynamic, wealth-creating, wealth-generating, investing people who are taking their money. And the Labour Party is making, in its year in office, has catastrophically made it much worse. They talk about new taxes, they talk about wealth taxes, they talk about taxing non-citizens on higher rates. Even if they don't implement them, they cause such harm through uncertainty that this continues to sort of accelerate. And of course, these people are the most mobile. They're, as I say, they're younger. They're not tied to the country yet. And so they are taking advantage of their flexibility. They could, of course, return.
Right.
There's a possibility that but profound change has to be enacted in order for that to happen.
Adrian, we need to take a break. Can you stay with us through after the break?
Sure. Yes.
All right. You're listening and watching Inside Track on Live the Dream Media. We've got some great sponsors to talk with you about. We'll be right back. No channel flipping.
You're listening to Inside Track with Bruce Ash on the Live the Dream Media Network. Now a word from our sponsor.
It's termite season.
Hi, it's me.
And bugs fear the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. Go blue at Essential Pest Control. We'll eliminate those bugs, bees, and termites. And stop paying too much to that national provider. Buy local for great service and affordable rates. Call Essential Pest Control, because termites fear the blue.
Run for your life.
Call for the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. 886-3029. That's 886-3029. Or check online at essentialpest.com.
This is Ed Wilkinson with Wilkinson Wealth Management, where we manage money for gun owners. What does it mean to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired? It means designing a plan that allows you to do the things you want to do, outpace inflation, and never run out of money in your lifetime. If you want to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired, call me, Ed Wilkinson, at 777-1911. That's 777-1911, or WilkinsonWealthMGMT.com.
I'm proud to welcome my good friends at Tucson Iron and Metal Retail to Inside Track as an advertiser. Jamie Kipper and her staff are conservation experts. They sell round and square steel tubing, metal plate and roofing materials, as well as new and used steel, aluminum, and stainless steel to ranchers, artists, interior designers, roofers, as well as you do-it-yourselfers out there. Tucson Iron and Metal Retail is open Monday through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to noon. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail, 701 East 36th Street. call 520-209-1576. That's 520-209-1576, or go to TucsonIronRetail.com. Come by and be sure to ask for Jamie. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail. This is what conservation and repurposing is all about.
Welcome back to Inside Track with Bruce Ash on the Live the Dream Media Network. Now back to our show.
We're back to Inside Track with Bruce and Eb. Adrian Brettle is with us. This portion of the show brought to you by Wilkinson Wealth Management. Eb helps gun owners with their retirement accounts. He also does a great job for my family, and he'll do the same job for you and your family also. Call him today at 520-777-1911. He'll be right back at his office in about 40 minutes in case you need to talk.
Assuming on traffic, yeah. Hey, Inside Track is also brought to you by Bruce's 60-year-old commercial real estate company, Paul Ash Commercial Real Estate. They make good things happen every day. And we hope you'll call on our good friend Eric Ruden's team at Essential Pest. You can absolutely rely on Essentials pros. Bruce and I do. Call them at 886-3029 today to protect your home or business from all manner of pests, vermins, etc. And finally, if you need steel products for your home, business, ranch, or farm, call Jamie Kipper at Tucson Iron and Metal Surplus. They are Tucson's conservation specialists. Call them. They are. Call them at 20. Do they still have chickens there?
They do.
209.
Pick up a dozen eggs as well. It'll be better than $6 a dozen.
Call them at 209-1576 or go to the yard at 701 East 36th Street. You will be amazed at the great products sold at wholesale prices. We are speaking to Adrian Brettle from our own version of the Westminster Hour today on Inside Track. Thanks for spending some more time with us today, Adrian. I was talking with Bruce during the break. Are there immigration controls in Britain, or is it a pretty much Biden free-for-all that's coming in? I mean, you can't really put up a big, beautiful fence, but you are surrounded by big, beautiful blue water.
Well, I mean, the most visible aspect of it is the channel crossings, where they go on small boats across the British Channel, the English Channel, but far more are arriving as illegally as visa overstays. They come in as students, for example, and then they just stay. So there is this huge quantity of illegal immigration. Now, why can't we? Farage is putting forward a plan, but the current situation at the moment is that on account of legislation passed, again, the Human Rights Act, 1998, Britain's membership of the European Convention on Human Rights means that they stay out past their visa. They claim, if they get detected, whether it's on a boat, whether they arrive on a boat, or whether they overstayed, they claim asylum. And even if they get indicted, even if they get imprisoned for a crime, it's very hard to be deported. They will claim asylum, and they'll claim the right to remain on the grounds of a series of rights. For example, you have this incident of a Nigerian who had raped women, who had gone to prison, who had fathered children by two different women. When he came out, can't deport him. He claimed that he's now homosexual, and as such, he'll be persecuted in Nigeria. So the judge declared that he has a right to remain. Now, the interpretation of the law by radical far-left human rights lawyers is very profound and very dangerous. That is one aspect. But it is, unless you are, Britain is developing third-party country agreements, but those are only in the embryonic stage. So, as I say, at the moment, I mean, Keir Starmer talks about attacking the infrastructure of these sort of illegal gangs who finance the movement of people. But if you like, that's dealing with the symptom, not the cause, which is the attraction of Britain, that you can use, abuse, manipulate the legal system, use and find far left allies who are willing to help you with that, which means the asylum system is clogged up. And it is incredibly costly. the taxpayer pays up to $500 million. No, it's not half. I exaggerated. 500,000 a year paying for these asylum seekers in terms of legal fees and accommodation, etc.
Each
So
one.
you're talking huge numbers,
So
big numbers of costs.
let's talk about the taxes for a minute.
Yes.
So let's say I go to Britain, become a British subject because you can't be a citizen there, and I'm making £250,000 a year. What kind of taxes am I paying?
On the income tax level, any income over 40 odd thousand, you're paying 40%.
40%.
Of your income, 40%, and then there's a top slice. I think it's above 150,000. You're paying 50%. Broadly, so it weighs. The thing about the tax system is it weighs very heavily on the middle class. You don't earn much money, and you can get yourself paying higher rates of taxation. They call it fiscal drag, because both parties had frozen the thresholds of what you earn, and you get more and more non-taxpayers end up paying the basic level of tax, around 20,000 a year, and more are earning 40 to 50,000 a year, and are finding themselves paying higher levels of tax. It is the highest relative, although we don't have the good old days of 90% taxation on very high levels of income that Britain, like the United States, had in the 1950s to the 1970s until Reagan and Thatcher repealed them in the 1980s. But what you do have is a huge number. The tax burden has really continued to increase and is now higher than it was even in the 1970s. It's the highest it's been since the Second World War. And then there's there's sales tax at 20%, and Labour are increasing taxation on employment. You are paying their national insurance levels, which effectively is an income tax that you pay both as an employer and as an employee. Those have gone up, and other such taxes as well. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, so you got the VAT tax. That's 20%.
Yeah. Yep.
Is there a huge black market over there in Britain right now?
It's a good question. Obviously, we don't know about it if it is, but I think I think you can definitely make a point here that Labour are not getting, Labour's increase of taxation is not delivering the revenue they expected. And they are having an increasing deficit that is leading, and I'm sure you've read about reports of France today, but in Britain as well, because the revenue is not keeping up with expenditure. So to answer your question, yes, you are having a series of people avoiding tax. Of course, again, those people who are leaving, before they go, they're making sure they're minimizing their tax liabilities.
Sure.
The immigrant world is one where it is a cash economy has reappeared. You are under the radar. Don't think the immigrants are paying these taxes, etc. So yes, there is. And the top line numbers are Labour raises taxes and is getting less revenue. The Lafleur curve is actually working. Britain has reached that tipping point where the tax burden is at now, cannot be raised, and actually has to be reduced, and urgently.
Let's go back a minute to talk about the millions of immigrants that have flooded into Britain. In the U.S., we've got tens of millions of people that have come across the borders illegally. The crime has risen, unless you live in Washington, D.C. and Chicago, where they say it's virtually non-existent. The cost to taxpayers, providing services, it's just expensive. It's been extremely tough to deport the floods of illegal immigrants here. How hard is it to remove illegals in Britain?
Well, as I said, I won't go back over the courts again and how immigrants are able to use the right to claim asylum, the legal process, and the right to appeal and appeal and appeal.
Oh, really?
has meant that there's a huge backlog of courts. So until their claim of asylum has been denied, that they cannot be deported. we Conservatives had made progress before they left office just over a year ago, negotiating a deal with Rwanda. Because basically the point is that if a country won't accept the deportee, so we got over that, and we can say, right, we want to deport them, then the country has to accept them, and this increasingly has. And countries are refusing to accept immigrants. Now, Farage is looking at the United States, and is talking about paying immigrants to self-deport and paying countries to receive them. And the hard work needs to be done of what Trump is doing, of what Australia did, which is identifying countries which will accept these immigrants. However, at present, until you reform the law, the human rights legislation passed by Labour and Britain's membership of the European Court of Human Rights, immigrants will continue to have claim legal redress that they have a right to remain on the grounds of a right to a family life in Britain, freedom from persecution. That would be in there. So, as I say, there is a heck of a lot of hard work to do, and Labour has done nothing. The Conservatives did nothing, and as I say, that's the sense. That is that sense of government failure that, more than any other factor, has led to the appeal of the outsiders. Farage proposing, very much from the American and Australian playbook, 600,000 deportations a year is going to be its target. But governments have said that before and have systematically failed. But
Right.
maybe he can do things differently.
Adrian, before we move on to another topic concerning Great Britain, one question is, of those immigrants coming into Britain, how many of them are coming from Commonwealth countries where they actually have a right to emigrate to England? I think. I mean, that was the way it was in years past.
Yes.
And what are they creating the same sort of drain on the economy and driving up housing prices and so on? What sort of impact have Commonwealth members, residents, had on the economy and the overall situation in England?
Right. The Commonwealth immigrant that was repealed, I think, in the late 1960s. So there is no special cases can be made. And for example, with Hong Kong,
Right.
Britain honoured the passport holders from Hong Kong, and that led to an influx. Ukraine, Afghanistan, and other instances. But you are correct. Due to historic language links, countries like Nigeria, India, that were in the empire provide the overwhelming numbers of overseas students, for example, who are the ones that the international students who then stay. So it is an overwhelmingly, it's a Commonwealth migration. Pakistan, but then some other countries, Sudan and Ethiopia, Eritrea, Afghanistan, they're also the hotspots, the international hotspots. They, plus the Commonwealth and Africa and Asia, have provided the overwhelming numbers of immigrants coming through.
All right, so moving on into another area. Over the past 2 weeks, we've seen that America and the world hoped there'd be a breakthrough to end the Russian-Ukraine war. Donald Trump conducted face-to-face diplomacy with the Russian president. A few days later, Ukraine's president, British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, several EU leaders showed up in Washington to pledge their support for peace, and they were rewarded by more vicious attacks by Russia forces in Ukraine. Is Russia, in your opinion, serious about peace, and how relevant is Britain, the EU, and NATO to actually ending this war for control of Ukraine?
Well, to answer your question, no and no. No, Russia is not serious about peace, and no, Britain and the EU have absolutely no say. I mean, the decision's going to be made as things look at the moment on the battlefield, and hence the main players are Ukraine with United States and Russia. Only they are the crucial in determining the end of the war. Britain and I mean, now just to briefly mention, I mean, Britain cannot provide material help to Ukraine. It's emptied all its all its munitions stores. It cannot provide military support. Britain has no army. I believe our armed forces could fit inside Wembley Stadium. Our entire armed forces are smaller than the US Marines. I mean, this is an absolutely, Germany and France are exactly the same. We lack any military infrastructure. So at the moment, all we're doing is in the same as we're doing in Gaza. It's a sort of gesture diplomacy, not backed up by anything that could coerce I keep calling the Soviet Union, coerce Russia by upping Ukraine's military performance sufficiently to persuade the Russians that they're not going to improve their position by continuing to fight the war.
With that being said, what influence does Britain and the EU have on ending the war over there, if any?
Well, negative in the sense, I mean, the EU, I mean, this is a perverse, I mean, often quoted is that the EU buys more Russian natural gas in terms of value than it pays Ukraine. So actually the EU is negatively helping Russia more than it is helping Ukraine. So if the EU were just to stop totally doing anything, it would probably help Ukraine. It is absolutely appalling, the situation. Other than that, the only other thing the EU has done, and Trump is absolutely right on that, has given the Ukrainians unrealistic expectations as to what they can achieve. I mean, Boris Johnson being the sort of, the ultimate example of a politician who promises much but delivers nothing. The hard truths that the Trump administration has given Ukraine are far more sort of realistic and helpful than the Europeans prattling on about rolling back Russian gains, which they can do absolutely nothing about. But there are if they took their demand out for Russian resources, but the Russia's a huge. I mean, that is something that the EU could do, and it does financially support Ukraine in a non-military sense. Pays pensions, it funds the Ukrainian government. So there is a system, but nothing that's going to change the crucial thing, which is the battlefield. That fighting is where this war has to end. The battlefield, at the moment, and as the Russians say, Europe cannot coerce us. It has absolutely no chance of coercing us. The only power that can is the United States or China, and that's the key. EU and Britain are absolutely irrelevant for all their talking and coming over to Washington. And of course, I think Trump's getting too well aware of that.
It's no wonder, Adrian, that the Europeans as a whole are scared to death of this whole thing. They've been saying for years now that this could lead to World War III. And it's because they basically have no resources. If Russia were to decide to come across the border, say in Poland tomorrow,
yeah,
it's over in Poland.
Well, let's expand on that, Adrian. If the war were to end today, and Russia keeps the eastern part of Ukraine in just some sort of a deal, what is to prevent them from coming back later on, a couple of years, and trying to take the rest of Ukraine, as well as Poland, as well as Latvia, Estonia, places like that, things that were part of the Great Iron Curtain at one point?
Yeah, I mean, one does to say that Poland and the Baltics and Finland are rearming, but they're only I mean, Poland wasn't present at these meetings. Poland's concern is its own borders. It has historic quarrels with Ukraine. It's a complex picture.
Yeah.
Finns haven't trusted Russia since 1945.
Absolutely. And Putin is going to a Korean-like ceasefire. That's what we're going to have. It's going to be like there'll be a demilitarized zone, probably in the Donetsk region, where these fortified cities. At the moment, Russia's jockeying for a better deal. That's why you just heard on the news today, it's broken into Dnipropetrovsk, into a Ukrainian region further to. It's really dangerous, this, for Ukraine. So, but the fighting season will end. The mud will come by October, November. So the next 2 months are going to be crucial. But Russia will try and fight on as best it can. The best that can. Russia will present this as a pause, because that's the only way Putin will be able to sell it to himself and his people. So definitely Putin's going to leave the option open to attack. The question is, and comes to these guarantees, as in like in Korea, an unsatisfactory peace. What level of what sort of infrastructure, which the Americans are going to have to provide, is going to be sufficient as a deter to deter Russia from carrying out what it will say. It will say that it's going to attack Ukraine. Ukraine will be an armed camp, but that's better than being conquered by Russia. They will probably they will accept this South Korean situation for themselves.
Adrian, before we close for today, a question with respect to Keir Starmer, Macron, and other EU leaders, also I think Australia and a couple of other countries who've said that it's more than a couple other countries. I think there was 140 countries that have said that they would support a Palestinian state. What stake does England have in there being peace in Israel with their neighbors when they have so many Muslims living in their country who, if there was a war, their people would turn against them? Their people, meaning not just British subjects, but these immigrants who are here from these various countries. It's a pretty dangerous political situation.
Yeah, I mean the left-wing media, academics, teachers, unions, the education, they're fixated on Gaza in Britain. It's a sort of cultural war issue of the left, around which this coalition can gather and virtue signal about how much, with tears in their eyes, they care about Gaza. I mean, for Keir Starmer, as a lawyer, to recognise Gaza in the Palestine state in absolute defiance of international law. There is no government. There are no settled borders. It is not. I studied Confederate bids for recognition in the Civil War.
Right.
Everything. This is totally, utterly. It's illegal, but that doesn't matter. It's a ridiculous gesture. But as you say quite rightly, it keeps the activist coalition, who have a great influence on the Parliamentary Labour Party. For Keir Starmer, I mean, he is, as I say, for him, he's happy to surrender at Macron even more further down the line. It's about votes. It's keeping their parties together and seizing on an issue around which to unite in defiance of decency, of legality, etc., etc.
Well, Ab, it's time to wrap up. Let's take us home.
Which is sad because I love talking with Adrian. We need to have you back again soon, Adrian. All of our Inside Track podcasts are available on Live the Dream Media's Facebook page, YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, and X. Thanks for joining us today on Inside Track. Until next Wednesday, when we return with another great show, Bruce and I.
Bruce will be in sick bay.
Yeah, Bruce is going to be in sick bay. I'm going to be out saving America in Virginia. Got some important meetings going on. Stay tuned to our special live show featuring two very special guest hosts. This is Eb Wilkinson.
And Bruce Ash.
Please be sure to join us again in 167 hours.
Right on.
It's termite season.
Hi, it's me.
And bugs fear the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. Go blue at Essential Pest Control. We'll eliminate those bugs, bees, and termites. And stop paying too much to that national provider. Buy local for great service and affordable rates. Call Essential Pest Control because termites fear the blue.
Run for your life.
Call for the blue trucks from Essential Pest Control. 886-3029. That's 886-3029. Or check online at essentialpest.com.
This is Eb Wilkinson with Wilkinson Wealth Management, where we manage money for gun owners. What does it mean to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired? It means designing a plan that allows you to do the things you want to do, outpace inflation, and never run out of money in your lifetime. If you want to retire comfortably and remain comfortably retired, call me, Eb Wilkinson, at 777-1911. That's 777-1911 or WilkinsonWealthMGMT.com.
I'm proud to welcome my good friends at Tucson Iron and Metal Retail to Inside Track as an advertiser. Jamie Kipper and her staff are conservation experts. They sell round and square steel tubing, metal plate and roofing materials, as well as new and used steel, aluminum, and stainless steel to ranchers, artists, interior designers, roofers, as well as you do-it-yourselfers out there. Tucson Iron and Metal Retail is open Monday through Fridays, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and Saturdays, 8 a.m. to noon. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail, 701 East 36th Street. Call 520-209-1576. That's 520-209-1576, or go to TucsonIronRetail.com. Come by and be sure to ask for Jamie. Tucson Iron and Steel Retail. This is what conservation and repurposing is all about.